B, just don't smack. If you smack, my mom will come down from heaven and smack you just like she taught me. Now, the other thing is this. Listen up, because I guarantee you someone's going to mess this up. Put your cell phone on silent. Because if your cell phone goes off while I'm talking, that's 10 push-ups. Well, I mean, you do have a naval air station here, so I think that's about all that, a naval, sailor probably How to get that in? Okay. Hey, look, at least you're not Air Force. That's like... Hey, okay, so we got an airman here. Let me tell y'all a little joke before I get started.
Here we go.
There was a soldier, there was a sailor, there was an airman, and there was a Marine. And they were all having breakfast at a Waffle House after physical training. Except for the Air Force guy, he just met them there at the Waffle House. They didn't do physical training. But anyhow, they're sitting there at the Waffle House, and this guy sees them, and he said, listen, I'm going to take care of your check. So after they finish eating, but he comes over, he says, hey guys, I took care of the check, but I just want to ask y'all one question, and give me an honest answer. He said, if you were to ever find a snake in like your tent or something like that, what would you do about it? Well, the soldier stands up and says, well, sir, I take out my Beretta 9mm and I shoot the snake. Then I take out my M4, I shoot the snake again. Then I take out my 249 assault machine gun, I spray the snake. Then I call in mortar fire on the snake, because you always got to confirm a kill. Okay, that's pretty intense. So he goes over to the sailor, and the sailor says, sir, with all due respect, don't you understand? A naval vessel is ship-shaped. There are no reptiles on a naval vessel. He said, okay, I got it. And then he goes to the Marine, and the Marine looks up and says, and the guy just looks and says, do y'all know what he said? He ate the snake. Okay. And so then he goes to the Air Force guy who is ordering up some more waffles. And the Air Force guy said, why on earth would there ever be a tent in my hotel room? Am I right?
You're just mad because we take internet from the desert.
Yeah, y'all do take internet from us. But speaking of such, before I get started, every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman, law enforcement, first responder, please stand so we can thank you for your service in this nation and service to our community. Thank you. So what I want to talk about is the thing that bonds us together as soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen, and talk about the things that I see are the greatest threats to us here in the United States of America and also here in Texas. The folks that stood up here before you, to include the sheriff. The sheriff is a constitutional officer. That means that he abides by the rule of law. But every single one of the people that stood up here did what I did on 31 July 1982. They took an oath. They said these words. They said that I, Alan Bernard West, solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely, without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation, and we close it by saying, so help me God. When I think about where we are in the United States of America and in Texas right now, we are facing the greatest constitutional crisis that I think this country has ever seen. And why do I say it's the greatest constitutional crisis that we have ever seen? I want you to think about when someone who supposedly took that oath that says that they're the President of the United States of America, they're going to uphold our laws, and they have unconstitutionally, by executive order, abdicated their constitutional duty and responsibility to protect the sovereignty of this country and the sovereignty of the United States of America. In Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution that we took an oath to support and defend, there's a thing called the Guarantee Clause. That's what it is. And there are two things that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the Union of the United States of America. And it says that very succinctly. The very first thing is a Republican form of government. Not Republican Party, a Republican form of government. And what is a Republican form of government? First and foremost, how many of y'all have ever gone out and spoken to someone and they say, well, America's a democracy? Okay? Those people don't understand. We live in a constitutional republic. That's what it means by a Republican form of government. Number one in the constitutional republic is the rights, the freedoms, and liberties of the individual. The sovereignty of the individual over the institution of government. Who would have ever thought that the exact same person that said and did what they did with our border would also say to you, this is not about your freedom. And then he went on to talk about, during the debacle that we were going through in Afghanistan, so this was really one of those shift the narrative things, that you now don't have control, you don't have any rights over your own body. The government does. The same government that is unconstitutionally allowing, by month, hundreds of thousands of people to come across our border, not telling them they don't have the freedom to say, I don't want to get this injected into my body. Those are two major constitutional crises. It's the rule of law. And what is that second thing that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the union? To protect it from invasion. And look at what is going on. And so what I want to stress to you is that we can talk about property taxes, and maybe y'all will ask me. We can talk about critical race theory, maybe y'all will ask me. We can fix our electric grid here so that we're not freezing in our own homes again in February. But the number one thing that we have to fix in the state of Texas is an unsecured border. If we don't fix that unsecured border, second, third, fourth order, fifth order effects on this nation means that the clock is ticking. And we won't be around as a sovereign state or a sovereign nation. And just last week, I think that people finally across the country understood what it means when Texas does not have a secure border. Why? Because airplanes were landing in the middle of the night in New York and in Jacksonville, Florida. And previous to that, they were landing in Tennessee. Illegal immigrant minors landing in those places. See, we in Texas, we are sitting right now in the number one state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. You don't believe me? Talk to the sheriff. Here in the state of Texas, you know, Dallas, Cowboys won yesterday. I was born and raised in Atlanta. I don't think I want to talk about that game. I sold Cokes for the Atlanta Braves growing up. No, but right. Houston won last night. But Dallas and Houston are the top two cities in the United States of America for sex trafficking. That's not something we want to be proud of. But that's exactly what is happening here. The drug trafficking crisis, that again, I'm sure the sheriff will share a lot of information about. 8 to 10 times a day, fentanyl is being flown across that border and dropped off here in Texas by drones. The public health crisis that we have. About 3 weeks ago, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, was on Fox News Sunday, and he admitted that 1 in 5 of the people that are crossing the border has some sickness, has some disease, or what have you. And now you wonder why we had spikes in the state of Texas when you look at where these illegal immigrants are coming into. But yet, they're not being told they have to get a jab in their arm. And think about this. 30 years ago, I was in combat, my first combat tour of duty. It was Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And why did we get deployed to Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm? It was to protect the border of another country. And that was Kuwait. But we're sitting here right now, and the cartels are firing across the Rio Grande River into the state of Texas. And we're doing absolutely nothing, Sheriff. So what are we basically facing? International law says that's an act of war. We are allowing non-state, non-uniform belligerents to create a battlefield, and we are not invoking our full strength with a 26,000 man force called the Texas National Guard. We are at a constitutional crisis situation. So you say, okay, Carl, you just laid it all out. Then what do? You've got to first and foremost declare the cartels as a transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization. That's what they are. They're no different from the Taliban or any of the people that I face overseas. The Taliban used opium. The cartels are using fentanyl, methamphetamines, marijuana, anything, any drugs that they can use. And we've got to start talking in our communities about reducing the dependence and making sure that our children are not going out there being a part of this, because that's fueling them. That is financing them. Along with the human trafficking, which they make $25 to $30 million a week. Now, if you designate them as a terrorist organization, guess what you are able to do now?
Seize all their assets.
In the state of Texas, we can freeze their assets. In the state of Texas, we can seize those assets. Because there are banks here in the state of Texas that are laundering cartel money. When you hear about these stash houses, how do you get these stash houses? Who's paying for the stash houses? Who's the real estate agents that are doing it? You go after those assets. And when you seize those assets, you use it for our own border security. But if we don't understand that's the center of gravity, the president of Mexico has nothing to do with the territory that's on the south side of the Rio Grande River. It's those narco-criminal terrorist organizations, and we have to see them. 6 sheriff deputies to cover 1,400 square miles, to include 16 miles that run right along the Rio Grande River. And oh, by the way, what's the depth of the Rio Grande River in Candiate County? Maybe waist deep, mostly about knee deep. And so when I was out there, you saw the DPS agents. They're on Highway 90 or Highway 277. You saw the Border Patrol vehicles. They were just sitting, hanging around their vehicles. The sheriff, see, what did I tell you? I told you there'd be a phone. But what did Sheriff Cole do? He took me down and we got into the bushes. Because that's where troops need to be, to deter people from being able to come across. Nobody. Not a single person. That is what you cannot do if you're serious about controlling your border. And that's why we've got to have a stronger deployment of our Texas National Guard. You know, I sat down with some Army buddies who were retired, used to be military planners about a month ago, and we did a mission analysis, about 2 to 3 hours. 5,000 to 7,000. You put them down there on those major infiltration routes. You give them the right rules of engagement. You give them the right task and purpose. And you seal that border in those critical spots. You know, one of the things that we need to do for our constitutional officers, our sheriff's department, because Homeland Security has told the Border Patrol, they've told ICE, you don't deport people. You don't do anything to people. You know what's going on the border? Our National Guard members, if they see someone, because they're in an observe mode, and I've even seen National Guard helping people out of the rafts to come over into Texas, and then they get on the radio and they call ahead to the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol comes down and picks these people up in a van or in a bus, and then they take them to a non-governmental organization, an NGO. An NGO that is getting your taxpayer money by way of grants, and those NGOs become the travel agencies for illegal immigrants. That's where they get their plane tickets. That's where they get their bus tickets. That's where they get $1,300 of taxpayer money, cash, in a folder, and they're put on their way. And oh, by the way, a lot of those airplanes, they're taken off from military bases, like Laughlin Air Base or Fort Bliss, Texas. I would have never thought in our time, in my time, that we see our military bases used as platforms to aid and abet human trafficking, to aid and abet illegal immigration. But that's exactly what is happening. So another thing that we need to do, we need to give our constitutional officers the ability in the state of Texas to arrest, detain, not only for trespassing, which is a misdemeanor, and they just tie up their system. They need to deport them. If CBP is not going to do it, if ICE is not going to do it, then we need to make sure we're passing legislation that allows our law enforcement to be able to do it. And then on top of that, all of these non-governmental organizations that are here getting taxpayer dollars to be these travel agencies for illegal immigration, you revoke their licenses to operate here in the state of Texas. They're 501c3 organizations. All 501c3 organizations have to get permission to operate within the state. You revoke it. And if they continue to try to do it, you arrest them. You charge them with a felony in the state of Texas for aiding and abetting illegal immigration. That's the message we need to send. Now y'all say, now Colonel, scratch me. Can you really do that? Yeah, you can. Because the founding fathers were so brilliant in the Constitution of the United States of America. Not only did they tell the federal government that you're to guarantee this to every state in the Union, they also, in Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3 of the Constitution said, this is what a state can do if actually invaded, when there's imminent danger, without any admit of delay. If the federal government doesn't do their duty, the states, and remember what the 10th Amendment said, all of those powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people. In a constitutional republic, the state, under the ideal of federalism, is the center of gravity in these United States of America. And we just need to exercise that and understand. Because if we don't, I know we got our election integrity group sitting over here. Well, guess what? There's legislation that is going through, this human infrastructure bill. They're going to give citizenship to all of these illegal immigrants that are coming here. They're estimating 2 million by the end of this calendar year. But H.R. 1, y'all know about H.R. 1, right? What does H.R. 1 say? That there will be no picture ID to vote in the United States of America. There will be no voter registration roll review in the United States of America. That going forward, we will only do voting by unsolicited mail-in ballots. That there will be same-day voter registration, same-day voting, online voter registration. And number 6, what does H.R. 1 say? Illegal immigrants will be able to vote in the United States of America. This is all part of a grand plan. This is intentional. This is purposeful to undermine our representative democracy in this constitutional republic. And I will be damned if Texas will enable the downfall of the United States of America. That's my commitment to you, is to stand up and make sure that we secure that border and we protect you, your safety, your security, your life, your liberty, and your property. Medical freedom. If you lose control of your body, what do you have control over?
Nothing.
And maybe some of y'all know I had a little, boxing match with Mr. Wuhan coronavirus a couple of weeks ago. But I and my wife, we made the decisions. We made the decision to look at what treatments, therapies, and protocols are out there that we could select from. And that's why we chose the monoclonal antibody infusion therapy. Knocked it out. I had some traces of pneumonia, so they let my wife go, and I had to go into the hospital. And I know a lot of y'all are freaking out, man. Colonel Lake will make it out of the hospital. I would come out of that hospital guns blazing, okay? Don't worry. And so I'm sitting there with the doctor, and doctor doesn't even know. I've already called some other doctors. I said, what do I need to be asking for? What do I need to make sure goes in my body? So when the doctor shows up and he says, well, Colonel, we're thinking about giving you some remdesivir. I said, that dog don't hunt. No. Ain't happening. Okay, next. Well, nope, sorry. Let me tell you what I'm going to get. I'm going to get budesonide nebulizer treatments. I said, if not, then I'm going to unplug myself and I'm walking out of here. And in 48 hours, after the budesonide nebulizer treatments, lungs cleared, I walked out. And to the chagrin of my campaign manager, the next day after I was released from the hospital, I went out and ran 1.5 miles to try to, get my lungs back right. But that's what we're supposed to do. No one else knows my body better than I know my body. And no one else knows your body better than you know your body. So why do we have someone sitting in the Oval Office saying you got to get jabbed with this? But yet the 200,000 come across the board don't have to. Why do we have here in Texas, the Texas Medical Board, Texas Nursing Board, Texas Pharmacy Board, that are telling you that you can't go out and your relationship with your doctor and get prescribed hydroxychloroquine. Get prescribed ivermectin. Why is it that no one's talking about zinc, D3, vitamin C, calcium, all of these other protocols that are natural? Why is it no one's talking about natural immunity? Because, ladies and gentlemen, this comes down to following the money. And here in the state of Texas, we should not have anyone telling any of you that on condition of employment, you must have something injected into your body. That's why you need to be calling your state house member, your state senators, call the governor's office and say, you guys need to get back in session. I know you guys want to get out there, raise money, campaign, all that stuff, but your first line duty and responsibility is to us, the citizens of Texas, to protect us and make sure that we have our medical freedom. Third thing I want to discuss with you about. Last time I was here, the sheriff reminded me. He said that I told you that the most important elected position in the United States of America is
Sheriff.
School board. Now you see why. Look at what is happening in Loudoun County, Virginia. Look at what is happening in Fairfax. Look at what is happening all across the country. But yet, I was just checking in with the people up there in Cy-Fair, the third largest school district in the state of Texas. Their turnout percentage is absolutely abysmal right now for their school board elections. If you don't understand that this is a fight for the minds of your children and grandchildren, if you cede over the ability to make the choice for the education of your child, and remember what Terry McAuliffe said in that Virginia gubernatorial debate maybe 3 weeks ago? He said parents don't have the right to make a decision about the education of our children. And see, that's how you lose the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known, because we don't teach civics. Now I understand that some of us folks out here with gray hair, we need to understand some doggone civics, because edicts, orders, mandates, and decrees is not how you run the United States of America. You run the United States of America through the rule of law, through the legislative process. But we're surrendering our rights to people that are just pulling crap out of there, you know what. We used to call that the fourth point of contact in paratrooper. But that's what they're doing. When you go to the airport and the little announcement, says that, it is federal law that you must wear a mask, blah, blah, blah. There ain't no federal law. It says you have to wear a mask. You know what it is? Someone just wrote on a piece of paper. When you have the CDC, a governmental agency, saying to renters, you can't collect rent, and tell the renters they don't have to pay rent, where's that in the Constitution? We have a serious issue with being an informed, educated electorate in the United States of America. And what the left wants to do is to pervert the next generation so that they are making an indoctrination bill for the next round of socialists, Marxists, statists, maybe even communists here in the United States of America. We have got to make sure that we take back the system of education. And America used to have the gold standard of education. And when did it all start going downhill? Back during the Carter administration, when there was HEW, Health, Education, and Welfare, single government organization. And the teachers' unions coerced and got Jimmy Carter to separate them out, and they created the Department of Education. Which, if you study the Constitution, the federal government has no right or responsibility to be involved in education. That's a state. That's a local responsibility. So let me close on this before I take against an unconstitutional and lawless administration. I mean, we could sit down here and I can name, talk about 10 things we could impeach Joe Biden on. But no one is doing it. But the power in America is at the state level. And so goes Texas. So goes America. And the left knows that. They can never control America until they get control of the Lone Star State. And they're going to keep trying to get control of the Lone Star State. And someone needs to stand in the gap and say no. Someone needs to stand like they did on October the 2nd of 1835 at that little town called Gonzales and say, come and take it. Someone needs to stand on the ramparts and draw a line in the sand like a 26-year-old did at a place called the Alamo, William Barrett Travis. Someone needs to charge the battlefield like they did up the road in San Jacinto and they defeated tyranny and a dictator in 18 minutes. That's the spirit of Texas. Now some of y'all say, well, Carl, why you love Texas so much? Because I was born and raised in Georgia. No, y'all laughing. The first vice president of the Republic of Texas, who ended up being the next president of the Republic of Texas, his name was Mirabel Lamar. He's from Georgia. That liberty or death flag that y'all have out here in Texas, there was a little girl from Macon, Georgia that made that flag. And the Georgia Volunteers brought it out here. James Fannin, y'all know that place, La Bahia, Goliad? James Fannin was from Millersville, Georgia. Thomas Jefferson Russ, the very first Secretary of War for the Republic of Texas, was from Georgia. And I graduated from this little school back on the other side of the Mississippi River. Maybe y'all heard about Rocky Top, University of Tennessee. We don't have a nickname share like Tigers, Bears, Cats, or, you know, Chanticleers, Dolphins. We have a very special nickname that no other school has in the United States of America. That's the Volunteers. That's because 38 guys came here, and they're on that cenotaph. And I'm a former member of the United States House of Representatives, just like another former member of the United States House of Representatives, who history teaches us was the last person to be killed there at the Alamo. But if we're not careful, guess what ends up happening? This past June, 3 Texans wrote a book. Maybe y'all heard about this book. The book was called Forgetting the Alamo: The Rise and Fall of an American Myth. The left wants Texas. And they want Texas so bad that they're raising Texans to dispel the history and the bravery that was displayed for 13 glorious days right here in Texas. Let me challenge you with this. America is not about super duper people doing incredible things. I was once taught in church that God does not call the equipped. He equips the ones that he calls. America, Texas, is about ordinary people that stepped up to do something extraordinary. And one of my heroes is a woman that did an extraordinary thing. Every day of her life, she had the exact same routine. But on one specific day, she decided, I'm not going to do the exact same thing. That woman's name was Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks stepped on a bus one day. And she could have done like she had always done before. Gone to the back of the bus and sat down and been compliant. Went along with it and said, there's nothing I can do. But on that one day, she made a decision. Regardless of the consequences, regardless of the ramifications, she sat there at the front of that bus, which enables a kid like me, born in a blacks-only hospital in 1961, to be standing before you all. My 5th or 6th visit down here. That's what you can do. If you just decide, in this day, that you're not going to go to the back of the bus because progressives, socialists, Marxists, and communists are telling you that you have to. If this day, you decide that I will stand, and stand firm like it says in Ephesians chapter 6 before it talks about putting on the full armor of God. If you will stand firm in this moment, your children and your grandchildren, they will remember you throughout the echoes of history. You just got to make that one simple decision. You step on that bus to sit right there at the front. Say, that's my God-given right to be able to do so. And as a Texan, we have an incredible history here, Sheriff, that we need to stand up and we need to fight for. Why did I step down from being chairman of the Republican Party of Texas to step up to run to be the governor of the state of Texas? As chairman, you can advocate for policies and principles and these things, but you can't make it happen. As governor, I promise you, I will make it happen. God bless you all. Thank you. Questions? Okay, I'm preaching to the choir. You know what I heard a pastor say one time? He said, I may be preaching to the choir now, everybody's got to go out and sing solo. You know, one of the good things for me is the name and face recognition that I have and the ability to get that message out. But I need you all to do that. Every single one of you here got one of these. Maybe some of y'all got two of them. And then maybe some of y'all got a couple of iPads to go along with it. So I will tell you that the next time you sit there and you think about sending out the nice little video of the baby laughing or rolling over on the floor or the cat playing the piano, when was the last time you sent out Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution? How many of y'all, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, because we're all friends here. How many of y'all sitting here right now even knew what Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution said before you came in? I mean, this is what I'm saying. How many of y'all even knew about Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3? It gives the state the power to be able to secure and protect its own border from invasion. This is what I want us to do. When we come together in groups like this, and we have a nice meal, and we dress up all pretty, except for me, I guess. But when you walk out those doors, what's your call to action? When you walk out those doors, what's that nugget of information that you got that you didn't have when you came in? That's the only way we win. Let me share with you a quote. Because unlike being in the Air Force, soldiers have to write stuff down because we ain't smart.
Fair.
Listen to this. The uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow. They come to be accepted by degrees, by dint of constant pressure on one side and constant retreat on the other, until one day when they are suddenly declared to be the country's official ideology. This quote is from the 1950s, and it was written by Ayn Rand. Who would have ever thought that we'd be sitting here in 2021 having an argument or debate about whether or not biological males should be playing female sports? Who would have ever thought that we would be sitting here today in the state of Texas where we are chemically and physically castrating children, giving them hormonal therapies, puberty blockers, surgeries to remove functioning body parts? There was a 13-year-old girl that testified in the Texas State House this past legislative session, 13 years of age. She had both her breasts removed because someone put it in her mind that she was a boy. That's what I mean, the uncontested absurdities. And see, how do we get to this point, Judge? Because like in the old SEC football days, it's just about picking up 3 yards. And you pick up another 4 yards. And maybe you pick up another 3 to 5 yards. And what do you get at the end of those 3 plays?
First down.
First down. And you keep marching down the field until you get to what Steve Spurrier used to say, pay dirt. You score a touchdown. And see, the problem is that constant pressure that they have put on us, we have consistently met it with constant retreat. They don't really mean it. They don't believe in that. You're just a conspiracy theory. You're just making that stuff up. And now look at where we are.
Yup.
When a person that's the President of the United States of America stands up and says, this ain't about your freedom. Everything in Texas, everything in the United States of America is about your freedom. But there are some people that just went along with it and continue to go along with it. That's what we got to do. Everybody has to share that message. You can go to our website, west4texas.com. Did y'all hear about what the NAACP put out last week? Y'all hear about that? The NAACP sent a letter to all the major professional sports organizations, and they said, do not allow any black athletes to be drafted by Texas sports teams. Yeah, see what I'm saying? This is why you gotta come, Gina, you gotta share this stuff. But you know why they said that? Because Texas is about voter suppression for minorities, and Texas heartbeat law, we're against that. Let me tell you, and if y'all go to our website, I just put a little thing out about the NAACP. Let me tell you how stupid that is. First of all, the NAACP was not founded by colored people. The NAACP was founded by about 6 or 7 progressive socialists during the turn of the century. But how stupid is it, an organization that says they are the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, to be standing on the side of an organization like Planned Parenthood that was founded by a white supremacist and a racist by the name of Margaret Sanger, that since 1973, Roe v. Wade, almost 25 million black babies have been murdered in the womb. And they're sitting around talking about, you know, George Floyd. When 25 million have been murdered in the womb. A genocide. And if we don't call them out, and don't tell me this stuff, well, Carl, you can say that stuff because you're black. 3% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in black communities. The second largest facility in the world for murdering unborn black babies is located in Houston, Texas, where tomorrow night they'll play Game 6. But how many people know that Game 6 will be played, but they don't know that the second largest facility for murdering unborn children in the world is in the exact same city? Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to let you know that my roommate in college was none other than Sid Blanks from Del Rio, Texas. Sid Blanks was the first Afro-American to play in the Lone Star Conference. He was my roommate, he was my best friend, and he was a wonderful human being. Now he's in an assisted living home with dementia in Houston. But Sid Blanks was one of the finest human beings you could ever meet in your life. And we used to dive into piles, get him out, because they'd bite him. He'd come back and he said, "Ronnie, look at this." And he had teeth marks on, and we got the number of the guy. Well,
I know.
the rest of the story. But for $450,000 that this guy wants to give illegal aliens.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What do you think about that? That's ridiculous.
There are women here. I can't say what I want to say. But it's beyond ridiculous. Again, this is something that it really is unconstitutional. You're going to give 6 figures, up to 7, to people that violate our law and they're here illegally. And now you're going to sit around and say, well, we really are trying to tell them don't come here to the United States of America. You kidding me? Everybody's going to want to come here now. But see, what you have to understand is that this is part, again, of a long-term strategy. I'm sick and tired of people asking, when is Joe Biden or Kamala Harris going to come to the border? They're not, folks. They don't see this as a crisis. They don't see anything wrong. And that's why we got to step up. We got to do it as Texans. Because what they're trying to do is create the next permanent dependency class and voting bloc. 2022 is Joe Biden's, I'll get you. 2022 is Joe Biden's first midterm election. Let me tell you about history. Bill Clinton's first midterm election in 1994, he lost 54 congressional seats. That's when Newt Gingrich and all this contract with America. Barack Obama's first midterm election cycle, 2010, he lost 63 congressional seats. I was part of that class. What do you think they know is going to happen? And I think we're going to have a bellwether of that tomorrow in Virginia. But what do you think they know is going to happen in 2022? But that's why they're trying to do as much as they possibly can up to now. That's why they're trying to flood our borders, get people in here illegally. 2 million people by the end of the year coming into the United States of America illegally. That's greater than the population of Dallas.
Can't sustain it.
You can't sustain it. But they don't care about sustaining it. All they care about is power control. And that comes back to the election integrity table once again. How could it be that here in the state of Texas, we passed an election integrity bill, we're on pages 72 to 73, We took voter fraud from being a state felony offense down to being a Class A misdemeanor. What message does that send to Chris Hollins and Lena Hidalgo just up the road in Harris County, where Chris Hollins should be in jail for, first of all, wanting to mail out 2.7 million unsolicited ballots and then violating Texas election law by opening up these things called curbside voting. So I will tell you, it ain't about the laws that you have, it's about whether or not you enforce them. Yes, sir, back here.
Colonel West, much of what you're saying about reasserting Texas sovereignty is music. It's our love language. And so my thought is, and I'm wondering, I appreciate your bold conversation with us. To what extent are you willing to challenge federal jurisdictions? In other words, are you willing to risk arrest? Are you willing for our law?
Ain't nobody gonna arrest me. I'm armed.
Could not the federal government arrest some of our own personnel? Are we willing to risk that type of conflict on the border to secure it?
Here you go.
That's my question.
Here you go. If it's in the Constitution and you don't want to abide by it, then you're the one that's wrong. I'll give you a great case in point. HB 97 was passed in this last legislative session. What does HB 97, say? It says that, and probably Sharon knows, any suppressed arm that is made in the state of Texas can be sold to a person that's a Texan. Without going through the whole rigmarole about waiting 6 months for the tax stamp and all this kind of mess. Because that's not in violation of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. The Constitution is a beautiful thing if you read it. The Commerce Clause says that the federal government gets involved when there is commerce between states, when there's commerce between states or the country with foreign entities, or with the Indian nations, because we still respect their sovereignty. But if it's within your state, then you should be able to produce, manufacture, and sell something to the citizens of that state. That's the law that we pass. So why are we worried about ATF coming down and arresting people in the state of Texas? It's just the same as, and I wrote about it, I'd love to have an FBI agent think that they're going to go and arrest parents. Oh, we'll head that off at the pass. I'll get some constitutional officers like the sheriff you got here, great sheriff y'all got here, and they're just salivating. Who wouldn't want to throw some federal officials in jail? But this is your homework assignment. Tonight, read the entire Declaration of Independence. When you read the entire Declaration of Independence, and you look at the grievances and the usurpations that Thomas Jefferson listed against King George III, happening now. Yep. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So no, I'm not worried about someone coming down and arresting me, because I'm a free citizen.
Right.
I ain't a subject, and I ain't a serf. Then you, ma'am. Young man?
Colonel West, so I know we weren't going to get the nitty-gritty stuff. How do you feel about nuclear power, and do you think it's a viable option for Texas to prevent what happened to the grid?
Yes. This is what we need to do with ERCOT, okay? Any person in the military would say, I mean, we're on our own grid. But you break ERCOT down in regions. When you break it down in regions, now you got to task organize your energy distribution in those respective regions. You got to make sure you have backup. We need to make, we're the Saudi Arabia natural gas. So natural gas and the backup plants. You got the clean coal that we could use. Texas got a whole lot of coal. Don't believe me? Go out there in the panhandle. It's just all over the place. And then the other thing is nuclear. What happened in Texas should have not happened. An 11-year-old boy in Conroe, Texas, froze to death in his bed. You didn't know that? See, that's why we've got to share information. An 11-year-old boy in Conroe, Texas, froze to death in his bed. Can you imagine what it's like being a parent? And you're stacking blanket upon blanket upon blanket on your kid, only for your kid to never wake up again. But let me tell you the honest to God truth. There are energy companies here in Texas, one energy company specifically, they made $2.3 billion during that freeze. That exact same energy company, they made $2.3 billion while an 11-year-old froze to death in his home in Conroe, Texas. They gave the governor a $1 million campaign contribution.
What a shocker.
I don't understand. I am not going to play this game of subsidizing wind and solar. Wind and solar is an unreliable source. Okay? But we cannot have people believing that they have that kind of power over us, whereby they're making the decisions that resulted in the loss of life of an 11-year-old boy in his own bed. That's unconscionable. Yes, ma'am.
All right, well, first of all, love the fact that you're here. Thank you so much for coming down.
But Jeannie told me if I want to hear, she would shoot.
Yeah, you gotta listen to her.
I do. I'm more afraid of Jeannie than any federal agent.
Smart man.
Each other in the middle. Because I will do what is necessary here. But I need you all to do what is necessary from the bottom up. Yes, sir?
Yeah, the Cultural Revolution, the CRT stuff, has all come from the top down.
Yep.
As governor, you will have the power to appoint the Board of Regents to the...
Absolutely. We ain't putting no leftists on no board of regents, okay? That ain't
Get rid of the ones that are there that allowed...
When their term is up, they're gone. Okay, I can't just go in there and, oops on them. But when their term is gone, they're out of there. And that's not just the Board of Regents. That's looking at all of the heads of the agencies that are out there. I'm telling you, the head of the Texas Medical Board is gone when I'm there. Nursing Board, Pharmacy Board, they're gone.
Good.
They have no right to tell anyone in the state of Texas, you're a doctor, cannot prescribe this to you. That's none of their business. Okay, so we got a lot of things that we have to work on. And we even talked about one of those agencies that deal with the supervision of law enforcement facilities and correctional facilities. We got a lot of stuff to do. We got a lot of cleaning house to do. And I will tell you something from the bottom of my heart, President Trump, he didn't recognize that. He did not recognize the second, third order deaths of the bureaucratic administrative state. So when we get in those positions of leadership, we got to clean house to make sure we have people that understand our philosophy. How much time I got, Jeannie? Jeannie, am I okay on time?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
All right.
I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I have a lot of relatives and friends that said, well, no, I'm happy with Abbott. I'm happy where we are. But that's because, and I told just my old aunt the other day, I said, okay, we all used to think that H-E-B ice cream was pretty good until we tasted Bluebell. So now when I talked to her this morning, I told her I was coming to see you, and she said, you're going to go see Bluebell. I said, I'm going to go see Bluebell.
I don't know if
I don't know how you feel.
Colonel Bluebell, just don't
So I know you're not from Texas, but I want to tell from the bottom of my heart, we are so glad you got here. Thank you for helping us and saving Texas. So,
We're going to do it.
thank you.
Absolutely. Yes,
I am passionate about your campaign.
well, thank
I
you.
tell people,
Just don't call me Bluebell. That's going to be in my head for the rest of the day.
Colonel Bluebell.
I tell them that you are a significant person for two reasons. Number one, you are anti-identity politics, a living example of anti-identity politics. You are a believer in the sovereignty of the state of Texas and therefore other states. Those are two very important foundational principles that Marxism is built on. You line the people up so they hate each other. Then you go in and you take over the government and tell them, I will take care of everybody. Fundamental Marxist philosophy and the sovereignty you've talked about in the Constitution.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And, again, warriors, as I've articulated, warriors move to the sound of the guns. A true warrior. A true warrior does not run away from the front lines. Texas is on the front line. Texas is the tip of the spear. Texas is where the fight is. I've had people that come up and say, you got a Democrat member of Congress, why didn't you look to run for Congress? Well, first of all, I've been there, I've done that, I got a T-shirt. I never want to see Maxine Waters face to face again. Turn to stone, kind of. A little Greek mythology. Or Senate. The fight for America is not in Washington, D.C. The fight for America is right here where we are sitting in the state of Texas. And every single one of you, as it says in the book of Esther, should be honored that you are living in a time such as this. Now what you do is up to you. But God has so blessed you to be alive in this moment, to make a difference, to make history, to have your children or grandchildren remember you for something momentous, preserving their individual rights, freedoms, and liberties. So that's all I want you to do. I want you to be bold. I want you to be of good courage. I want you to understand that you stand on everything that is right. You just got to have the courage to do it. The other side are a bunch of, they have a delusional tenacity. What do I mean by that? They know that what they believe in is absolutely crazy. Never been successful anywhere in the world. Most recently, they took one of the most prosperous nations in this hemisphere and destroyed it. That's Venezuela. But they have a tenacity that they will fight you tooth and nail, knowing what the results will be. But they just believe that their constant pressure, Judge, will be met by your constant retreat. I say now's the time. We say no. We fight back against these bastards. That's what I think about every single day of my life. Let me close on this, because I know y'all got busy lives. I remember reading one time, and I share this with everyone. I remember reading one time that there are two most important days in your life. The day that you were born, and the day that you find out why. 7 February 1961 was the first day. And like I said, in a blacks-only hospital. How is it possible if America's a racist country and I'm standing here before you being born in a blacks-only hospital? That dispels that rumor. But the second most important day for me was 1985, January. Going through a very narrow little defile, not even as wide as this room, called Checkpoint Charlie. We had just done training over in West Berlin, and we got one day to go over, do shopping, whatever, and see East Berlin. When I got over to the other side, I was 24 years of age. So I don't ever want to see that in my country. The despair, the despondency, the depression of the people that couldn't look you in the eye, no smiles, the dilapidated buildings, the potholes in the streets, the empty shelves in the store, and the blessings that so many people before you have given you. God bless you all.